Good evening, Bulls fans. This is Matt Gritzmacher with UBBullRun.com. I'm joined by John McWhinney. It's Sunday night, 10 p.m. That means it's time for our weekly Olympic sports rundown. I think this is the last week I'm going to say it. If we have any viewers, regular viewers, you know it by now. When we say Olympic sports, we mean what you might also know as non-revenue sports. Basically, it's every non-football, non-basketball sport that UB has. Bull Run, we pride ourselves on covering everything. With some apologies to rowing, we try. We just don't know how to write about rowing. When they compete, we'll do what we can to talk about them in October. The whole blog editorial team does a podcast on Mondays for football. Tune in tomorrow for that, and every Monday through the season. Things slow down a bit in basketball season with more games, but we'll see if that changes this year. But right now, it's Sunday night. We're talking UB Olympic sports. This was the busiest weekend so far on the season, and will be the busiest weekend for UB athletics until February, when February and March are just off the charts with winter sports still going on and spring sports starting early. This weekend we had everybody who's been going for a few weeks: men's and women's soccer, volleyball, all had action. Cross country started last week, had another race this weekend. And men's and women's tennis started. They each had a tournament. Throughout the fall, they do more overlapping. Usually they don't both play on the same weekend. So we had a real big weekend. We'll talk about all of that, all those fall sports, including tennis, which does more in the spring, but also competes on kind of a more individual-minded basis in the fall. First things first, though, is a sport that you may be surprised to hear about so early. On a team scale, UB Wrestling doesn't start till November. November 1st at the Terrapin Duels in Maryland. But we've got a real big wrestling news. Nate Rose, incoming freshman from downstate, competed at the World Championships this past week for his home country of Trinidad and Tobago. Those of you who don't know, John, my Olympic helper, podcast co-host, we first got him onto the site because he knew wrestling, and I slowly pulled him into everything else, but wrestling is his wheelhouse. John, World Championships is big news no matter what. But I turn the table over to you. Just what does this mean for UB? What does it mean for Nate Rose? And what should we look for out of Nate Rose as a freshman this season?
All right. So to answer your first question, for those who are unaware, the World Championships are just a little step below the Olympic Games in terms of international competition in wrestling. All the teams that are going to send people to the Olympics, they send them to this tournament. And each weight class gets 6 automatic qualifications for the Olympics. So if you finish in the top 6 in your bracket, you're heading to the next Olympic Games. So for UB, this is a huge deal. Rose is the first ever grappler from UB to ever compete. He's actually, from what I found, he's the first ever from Trinidad and Tobago to compete at the World Championships as well. Their country there's not a lot of information out there about their whole wrestling program. I only stumbled upon their Facebook page, which most of it is just showers and showers of praise for Nate Rose. He did well, considering he is only an incoming freshman into college, and another fellow who's in his weight class at 97 kilograms, wrestling freestyle. I should mention this: at the World Championships, there are 3 tournaments. There's a men's freestyle, a men's Greco-Roman, and a women's freestyle competition. And Rose wrestled in the freestyle. Freestyle wrestling, it's a lot of throws. It's all mostly upper body type things. Whereas folk style wrestling that you see at the NCAA level, it's completely different. Where it's your freestyle, you're staying on your feet, you're trying to throw your opponent to the mat, and points are awarded based on the official language is the amplitude of the takedown, which I know Matt thoroughly enjoys that as well. So Rose was in Las Vegas. which actually this is the first time the World Championships have been held in the United States in over a decade. The last time was in 2003 when they were in New York City at Madison Square Garden. So this is a competition that rotates around the world with different host nations. And Rose won his first match with a 10-0 technical fall or technical superiority, depending on what you want to call it. But he completely dominated his opponent. His name was Aurelio Valdez from Mexico. And he's a few years older than Rose is. I couldn't find an exact biography, but based on some of the other competitions he's been in, I'd say he's about 3 to 4 years older than Rose at least. He showed off great upper body strength, and he just kind of threw him around like a rag doll. And he finished him off within 2 minutes of being on the mat. I think we could probably throw a link in somewhere to the post I did write about this, and there are videos I put in the post so you can actually watch Rose's matches because they recorded all of them and put them up on YouTube. So the first round is called the qualification round, and then he won and moved on to the round of 16, where he faced a fellow by the name of Ibrahim Bolakbasi, and he is from Turkey. And he's actually a former Olympian. He competed in the 2012 Summer Olympics for the Turkish national team, and Turkey is actually one of the better programs in the world. He lost by a technical fall, but I give him a huge amount of credit for going out there and standing tall against a former Olympian who is quite a bit older and has a lot more experience than he does.
So what about UB, John? What does this mean for UB?
For UB, it's big. For UB wrestling, it's a huge deal. This is just short of getting someone in the Olympics. This is as big time as it gets.
And he's gotten there with 4 years of eligibility left for the Bulls.
Yes. Like I mentioned earlier.
Go ahead.
There's a kid that wrestled in his weight class from Ohio State who actually won the world championship and is actually the youngest world champion ever. He was a freshman last season. He actually beat Jaden Cox in the semifinals of the NCAA tournament. I believe his name was Kyle Snyder.
Kyle Snyder, yeah. Did you watch the championship match or no?
I watched the champion. He lost the championship match, which he should have won it.
No. I'm talking about the world championship match.
Oh, the world championship match. Oh no, I wasn't able to catch it.
He had a very American fall behind 5-3, and then get a 2-point. I guess it's not a takedown. It must be something else. But he got a 2-point thing in the last 30 seconds to get back to 5-5, and then won on the strength of the amplitude of his takedowns, as you tell me is the criteria for freestyle wrestling. It was a good match. It's worth your time, John. Worth your time, anyone who's watching. Everything I know about wrestling I've learned from John. This kid Kyle Snyder is a collegian at Ohio State, like John said.
And he's actually, I believe, he's taking the year off to train for the Olympics because he secured a spot on the U.S. national team by winning the championship. Mm-hmm. So back to UB, for Coach Stutzman, this is a huge recruiting tool for him. He can walk out to recruits and say, he can sit down in the living room and say, this is UB wrestling. This is what we can do with guys. We can send you to the World Championships. And then from there, you work hard enough, like Nate Rose has. He's worked really hard. He got to the World Championships. This could be you. That's what he can go in and say to any recruits, and that's a huge recruiting tool. Mm-hmm. And he said it in a video on FlowWrestling.com, and he made, that's like the big thing that I took from it, was that he's going to use this as a big recruiting tool. Awesome. To say that this is what UB Wrestling can do. If you come in, you work hard, you do all the right things, you can be in the World Championships, you can be an Olympian.
Mm-hmm.
And
On the mat, you've talked about him. I mean, obviously stepping in right as a freshman, that's not too much of a surprise, especially in those upper weights where UB struggled last year. But you think that he's going to bump Joe Areola down a weight class, who Joe Areola last year was probably one of UB's more impressive folks in those upper levels, those upper classes.
Yep. Yeah, I think Ariel was going to go down to 184 regardless because I think he did better at 184 down the stretch. Because he's kind of a shorter, stockier guy, and at a lower weight like that, that gives him a pretty big advantage. And he's really strong too. He's strong, not to make a pun, but he's strong like a bull. Got a lot of upper body strength. He can really use that to his advantage at 184, and then that leaves the door open for Rose, who has said, I think it was in the press conference before he left for Las Vegas, who he said that he wants to be a national champion. And in the Flow Wrestling video that I mentioned, there were kind of rumblings of people saying that Rose could be a guy that could put J'den Cox on watch.
Yeah.
You know, for like a MAC championship or something like that. And that really took me aback, saying like, you know, we got a guy who people are saying, you know, a former national champion and a 2-time All-American, he's going to put this guy on watch.
Yeah.
Okay, this guy, I think he's going to be as good as advertised.
Yeah, and once again, everything I've learned about wrestling, I know from you. But watching J'den Cox last year, not just in the MAC championships, not just in the UB match against Missouri, but even in the NCAA tournament, J'den Cox just kind of pulls guys into a ball. Like, you get the image of these big, strong guys taking a shotgun and twisting it into a knot on cartoons. That's what J'den Cox does to people. He just pulls them together and locks his arms together, and that's his pin. And nobody could stop him. And so that's a name that you need to know if you're going to pay attention to MAC wrestling. And to say that, you know, Nate Rose is in his league as a freshman, I know very little about wrestling, and I think it's a big deal. And John knows a lot about wrestling, and he's popping his eyebrows and saying it's a real pleasant thing to hear.
Yeah, that's I mean, when people are already saying that he's going to come in and he's going to compete, you know, people are outside of UB, because of course Coach Sussman is going to say, yeah, he's going to come in, he's going to compete for a MAC championship. But then when you hear, you know, people from these big places like Flow Wrestling, you know, it's one of the bigger college wrestling outlets, you know, and they're saying, yeah, this kid can come in and he can challenge J'den Cox for a MAC title or something, that gets the little gear in my head turning, thinking, yeah, maybe this kid is the real deal. I shouldn't really say kid. He's only like a couple of years younger than I am. But yeah, I fully expect him to come in and place in the MAC tournament and go to nationals his freshman year. I honest to goodness believe that. I think this international experience is invaluable for him because as far as I could tell, there was no other MAC wrestlers that competed for any country, regardless of weight class. There were a few from the Big Ten. Actually, there was quite a few from the Big Ten. Big Ten is the SEC of the wrestling world.
Yep.
So yeah, he has a distinct advantage over anyone else, pretty much anyone else that we're going to face this year, outside of maybe a few people from the Big Ten. So he is at a very, very good, has a very good advantage over anyone else.
Yeah. I think we've kind of run out of things to say about Nate Rose. We're already 15 minutes in, but when you put someone at the World Championships, it's okay to talk about them for that long. Wrestling, like I said at the top of the show, doesn't start until November 1st. They'll be at Maryland for the Terrapin Duels, and I and my DC presence will have some live Bull Run coverage of that when the time gets here. I'm really excited to be able to go to that. UB will compete in at least 3 dual meets that day, John tells me, so get my money's worth from Maryland, who costs a lot of money to get to games. Moving on, wrestling, like I said, that kind of start to the season, kind of not. 2 teams that did start their season, men's and women's tennis, started both with tournaments this weekend. like I said, real men's and women's tennis season is in the spring. But the fall, there's lots of tournaments and things, mostly on individual level. The fall season kind of culminates in the ITA championships, which last year we saw both the men and the women reach historic inroads in the ITA tournaments. Had 3 men make it to the round of 32, 1 to the 16 in singles, and 1 doubles team make it to the round of 16. And on the women's side, I think we had two women on the singles side make it to 32, and 1 doubles team make it to 32. And so they're coming off a strong year. I wish I had more to say about tennis's opening weekend, both men's and women's. But neither Cornell, who hosted a women's tournament, nor Penn, who hosted the men's tournament, really updated much information on their sites. I'm pretty cranky about it, but we talked a lot about Nate Rose, so I won't go on. Names to watch early out of tennis. On the women's side, freshman Chantel Martinez Blanco comes from Puerto Rico. She was a 4-star tennis recruit. From what we can tell in the lightly covered world of tennis recruiting, she's one of the best recruits that UB's gotten ever. Certainly the best in 5 or 6 years, if not longer. That's as far back as I can find info. She stepped into UB and competed immediately in the top singles flight of this tournament at Cornell. I think she won a match. She won 2 matches on her first day and advanced to the semifinals of her flight. I don't know what she did since because Cornell doesn't care to tell us. But the real name from women's tennis is Laura Holterbusch.
I found a PDF document of all of the brackets.
Oh,
I stumbled on that.
Terribly useful.
Yes, So who's the first person?
Go to Flight A singles, and it's Chantel Martinez Blanco, and then Tanya Stoyanovska was also in Flight A.
Okay, so Martinez Blanco was in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, she won her first match.
Yeah, she won the first match to get to the quarterfinals. Then she lost in the quarterfinals to the eventual champion, Gabriela Knutson from Syracuse, who was the #1 seed.
Okay, Tanya Stoyanovska in that bracket also made it to the semis then. I knew one of them did.
Yeah, she made it to the semis, and she lost to Carolyn Pittman from Army. And doesn't look like...
Anyway, best news there is that Martinez Blanco stepped right in and has apparently impressed head coach Kristen Ortman-Maines enough to hit the top of the rotation. This is 1 year after Tanya Stoyanovska as a freshman came in and stepped in as the top. The real standout of the weekend, albeit in lower flights, was Laura Holterbusch, who is, I believe, a senior now. Might only be a junior, but I don't think so. Won her singles bracket, Flight B, I believe, and also pairing up with Stoyanovska won their doubles bracket as well. She was 4-0 in both of those brackets on the weekend. And I'm really interested in this because last year, Laura Holterbusch teamed up with Laura Fernandez, who's a now graduated senior in doubles, and they were UB's most consistent doubles pairing throughout the season. So I'm glad to see she's finding double success early on, at least, and things will change. Probably they'll mix it up through the fall, but it's good to see Holterbusch. She's kind of going to be one of the older, experienced players on the team. I'm going quickly through here to see who else managed more. Diana Agassieva won 1 match, then dropped in. Freshman Sanjana Sudhir won 1 match and dropped down.
Yeah, I think those are only the non-consolation brackets.
That's okay because I don't want to talk forever here.
And Laura Holtersbach is a junior.
A junior, excellent.
Is a junior.
Yeah, it looks like she was the only one to win more than 2 matches, and most only won 1. But Mercedes Losada Rubio, another freshman, won a couple. This has to be a consolation. Because Potok advanced to the consolation final and Losada Rubio advanced to the semifinal. I just scrolled far enough down to find it. That's good. They won a couple matches there. There's Holterbusch on that one. Oh, Christine Haraldson must have come out of the Christine Haraldson advanced to the consolation final. That's good. Doubles team advanced to A-Flight semis, and then Holterbach and Stoyanovska won their finals. It's a pretty good weekend. I'm glad you found that PDF. I feel a lot better now about that. I retract all my complaints about Cornell. Penn, on the other hand,
there's still another Ivy League school we can complain about.
There's always Ivy League schools to complain about. Penn, on the other hand, hosted this tournament, half dozen teams, and the only updates they've provided, at least as of an hour ago, was a press release with only how their Penn tennis people did, not how any other teams did in their competitions. So I won't make any sweeping judgments based on how B competed against Penn. I know that freshman Ethan Natolo lost one singles match. I'm pretty excited about him. He's maybe not as highly touted as Chantel Martinez Blanco, but he was a New York City champion as a junior in high school, and he's an in-state recruit coming up from New York City. Pretty excited for him. And so we'll see what happens more. The women are off next weekend and then head to West Virginia. That's a tournament, an invitational they were in last year. They do that at the end of September. And the men are in action next weekend. They're going to be a split squad. They're at the Ivy Plus Invitational, which they were at last year. That has a ton of teams. And then they'll also have some people at the Binghamton Invitational, which they did not attend last year. But so the men go next week, the women go in 2 weeks. And then from there, there'll be – actually, the men have a really heavy fall schedule. We'll deal with it when the time comes. So tennis got started. Some encouraging results from the women, especially from freshmen. The men also got started, and we don't really have enough information right now. I've got a post of it up on the site, and I'll update it when I get more information, if I get more information. So that covers folks who are new. We've got now 4 teams who have already hit their first action, and we're continuing their season this weekend. John, I could talk about any of them, so why don't you start off with whoever you want to hit?
How about we talk a little bit about volleyball? Okay. I know they're still winless on the season, but from all accounts, things have drastically improved when they're not playing top 10 teams in the nation.
Yep.
They went up 2 sets on Ole Miss and Southern Mississippi,
who combined had only 1 loss, or 2 losses between them when UB met them. So, good teams.
Yeah.
And
I didn't really follow much of the live stats or anything. I was in class. I was actually more following what you were tweeting out. Just from my untrained eye looking at the box score, that makes me feel good that we took an SEC team. We went up 2 sets on them, and it seemed like everyone was hitting well and whatnot.
Yeah, both Ole Miss and Southern Miss won the 3rd set to get back to within 2-1, and then made some sort of adjustments. We didn't have any live streams to watch, but made some sort of adjustments that UB's hitting percentage just took a nosedive in the 4th and 5th sets. UB was in the negative in the 5th set for sure against Ole Miss, and maybe in the 4th. And in between these 2 matches, they also played Belmont, losing 3-0. That was in the evening of the same day they played Ole Miss. But that last set against Ole Miss, where they hit negative, is the last. They've now gone 8 sets in a row without hitting the negative, which is they hadn't gone more than 2 sets in a row this season, in the early season, since doing that. So something's clicked. It wasn't enough to beat Ole Miss. It wasn't enough to beat Southern Miss. But the Bulls' offense is starting to work more efficiently, both total and when you look at the box score. All this weekend, they had 3-4 ladies with a good number of kills. It wasn't just one person getting 8 or 10 and everyone else really struggling. You had Akila Lane, Amber Hatchett, Megan Lipsky, Felicia Watkins, Patsy Shadow. Some combination of those 5 hit for 6 or 7 in every single match this weekend. Against Southern Miss, Lipsky had 19 kills, Cassie Shadow had 14, Hatchet had 11, Watkins had 10. That's a ton of kills. And that part of that, those raw numbers are increased because it was a 5-set match. But all of a sudden, UB's finding offense from multiple people, which is it's more of a symptom than a problem. But it was something that we've identified for the first 2 weekends as a pretty big deal. And based on the substitution patterns and the video that we were able to watch from the first couple weekends, it looks like Coach Blair Brown Lipsitz is trying more to shore up the backline defense and kind of is reducing her attacking options out of the back line. But it's helping. We're seeing Abby Beecher start to get some time. Madison Clark is a little bit up and down, but she's getting some time. Tessa Oyama started at libero on Saturday, which is a little bit surprising, and it worked against Ole Miss. It didn't work against Belmont, but she's mixing that up. We're seeing a lineup that more closely fits kind of how this team played last year, and this team does have a lot of new names. But we're seeing more subs, and at least right now, it seems like getting those subs in and out on the back line and improving the defense back there is helping. Without any video, I can't really say too much about this, but I bet that the first passes to the setter are better and more manageable for the setter to have more options so that she can keep the defense guessing as to which hitter she's going to pass it to, and where the attack is going to come from. And all that's coming just from play-by-play data. But the absolute biggest thing is that the attack has been inefficient and the attack has been pretty one-sided. And this weekend, it was more efficient than it's been all weekend by leaps and bounds, a factor of 5. Honestly, that's how bad it was for the first 2 weekends. And instead of having one person with an even decent number of kills, we're seeing 3, 4, 5 persons, join the attack and find a bunch of kills. So it's encouraging. John, I know you've kind of said that you were just following the tweets, but UB plays Canisius on Tuesday, and this is going to be UB Volleyball's first win of the season. UB's 62-8-2 all time against Canisius. That's a big number. And Canisius, at least heading into this past weekend, was also winless. And UB killed Canisius over 3 sets last year. So I think UB's in for their first win. It's still not a home match. I don't know if your schedule allows you to get over to Canisius at 7 on a Tuesday, but if you want to see a win, I think you should go.
I don't know how 7 on that Tuesday works, but I will have the following Thursday, their first home match against Akron. I should be able to get to that.
Which I won't get too far ahead of myself, but that should also be a win. Akron was actually picked below UB in the MAC preseason poll in the MAC East. Well, I believe Canisius will have a live stream. Might be on ESPN3. I think Canisius has that deal now too.
Fancy.
Yeah. I'll probably be in choir rehearsals, but I'll be able to catch it on the replay. And yeah, UB Volleyball is going to get their first win this Tuesday. Book it. Moving on, let me hit cross country real quick before we get ourselves to talk tons and tons about soccer. Cross country last weekend opened the season in Colgate with kind of a limited group of runners, especially on the men's side. A little bit more promising side from the women, but yesterday they held their annual UB Stampede Invitational at Beaver Island State Park. And is cross-country MAC championship caliber? I wouldn't go that far right now. But cross-country is a team that's going to be really improved this year. Last year, we kind of looked at women's soccer at the beginning of the year and said, if they can find some scoring and if a goalie steps up in replacement at Ainsley Weldon, they're going to be improved. And that's exactly what happened. Well, John said that. Yeah. John, before I fell completely in love with women's soccer, John covered their season preview last year.
So the,
You know,
the sage hath spoken with any prediction that I make now. You're like a little Swami hat or something.
Yeah, men's soccer, you know, we've been touting Scott Doney for a couple weeks, and we'll get to men's soccer in a bit, but he's really spurred some improvement from UB there. Cross country is another team to look out for, even in the fall. You know, in 3 weeks, we're going to be jabbering about wrestling and how good they're going to be this year. Cross country right now, based on these results, look out. Early season results aren't the most reliable of things because you want UB to be running at their best for kind of a 3-week span at the end of October. And then if they're really good, maybe you don't even want them running their best then. You want them to peak for their regional and national competitions. But simply going on the fact that UB runs the same race on the same course every year, and it was raining last year and it was raining way harder this year, I think it's fair to compare these times. And the men finished second out of 7 teams, losing only to Pittsburgh. They beat MAC rival Toledo and Binghamton, and there were a few other New York teams in action. And they, on the whole, were 14 seconds faster than the same race last year, 1 to 7 on average, 1 to 5 on average, 14 to 20 seconds faster than last year. A bunch of new names in there. Craig Kaiser is a junior who isn't even on the roster yet. He's so new. And then Dylan Servos is a freshman, not Jack Jibb, who maybe isn't running cross country and is just saving his time for steeplechase in the spring with track. But freshman Dylan Servos was in the mix. Lloyd Webb, who only raced 3 times last year, was in the mix. And top to bottom, this group was faster than last year. Tyler Sheving wasn't even in the top 8. Justin Van Epps wasn't in the top 8. Alec Pinecofer doesn't seem to be around anymore. But they're faster than last year already. And on what I think would have been a tougher and slower course than the same race last year. The women are even better. They're 55 seconds faster than last year on the same course. They also finished second, losing only to Pittsburgh. But for the women, beating Toledo at any stage of the year is a really big deal. As we talk about cross country this year, they're really compared to a lot of Northeast teams. They'll go and compete in New York City. They'll go and compete in Lehigh, Pennsylvania. Because we're in New York State, we're lumped into the Northeast rankings, and the entire rest of the conference is lumped into the Midwest rankings. Great Lakes, perhaps, is their region. So we won't see them again until the MAC championships. But Toledo is a historically strong cross-country program in the MAC, especially on the women's side. And for the women to beat them at any point of the season should open your eyes. And for the women to be across the board 50 seconds faster than they were last year at this race is a big deal. And they did it with 3 freshmen. Sharday Henry, she came out of Canada. I always am excited to see UB pull recruits out of Canada because Buffalo is the closest D1 school to Toronto, which is one of the great population centers on the continent. And UB should be mining that for all they possibly can. Sharday Henry, this freshman from Southern Ontario, fastest incoming recruit that the women's program has ever had. She stepped out and led UB in this race by 15 seconds, was 55 seconds faster than Corinne Burchard was last year in this race when she led UB. Burchard was only 15 seconds behind her, so she improved 40 seconds. Another freshman, Rachel Barrich, was number 3. The women look real good. If the women improve by 50 seconds on their MAC race from last year, they jump from 7th, which they finished last year, all the way up to 3rd. John, I don't think you followed cross country at all this weekend. I've said everything I want to say. Be excited for this group. The women are in action next weekend. The men are waiting until the beginning of October, and the women will also be in that race.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited for the track and cross country team, especially with Sharday Henry, because I remember going through in our preview doing working specifically on some of the newcomers, and she was one of the ones that really caught my eye. And I like her already because she, in her biography, she lists Goon as one of her favorite movies.
Oh man, I love Goon.
And she's Canadian, and she likes that movie. I tip my hat to her. Definitely.
Oh man, I've got to tweet that out right now.
And
Take its way to another sport while I type this tweet, John.
All right. I guess we move on to women's soccer because I was actually there for both those games. That was.
Oh, I was just making fun of you for your humble brag there.
Oh,
I was actually there.
Oh,
but
yeah.
John's doing amazing work with women's soccer early, and once all the other teams decide to come play a home match again, he'll do it for them too.
Yeah, so I'll be a busy little bee. And it's really easy to pick me out of the crowd because I'm the only idiot sitting there with a laptop and a notebook, frantically typing away and writing.
That's how they found me last year. I had my notebook and tweeting every 3 minutes, and
yeah.
So since last week we were drinking orange juice and whatever hard liquor we could find to mix with our orange juice. I think you had vodka, I had gin.
I did have vodka.
It was a holiday the next day.
Yeah.
Last week we were celebrating a win over the ACC Syracuse. It's UB's first ever win against an ACC opponent. Despite what the UB athletic department wants to tell you, Miami was not in the ACC in 1999. Don't mess with us. Since then, UB's tied Niagara, which hurts to say. I hope it hurts to hear. It was even more painful the way it went down and what UB needed to do to even get the tie. And then they came out and looked like a team who remembered how to have fun and blitzed Binghamton 3-0. Binghamton had 2 very good chances in the first half that I don't think anybody should be happy about, but that's what Laura Dougal is good for. Mm-hmm. Lots of good news from the Binghamton game. Lots of good news. Well, one really exciting piece of good news from the Niagara game. 3 people scored their first goals of the season this week for UB. John, what did you see in either game, both games? Where is this team right now heading into West Virginia, who I do want to talk about tonight?
It was a tale of 2 games, really. Against Niagara, it was. I think Coach Burke really said it well in his post-game interview video thing, whatever the department does. And he mentioned that someone needs to step up. We have to be more aggressive. We have to take the shot. Someone needs to step up and score a goal. And thank God for Rebecca Bramble, with literally no time on the clock, she scored a goal to tie the game. I think it was under 10 seconds. I think it was either between 8 or 2, depending on who you ask or what you look at.
When the ball hit her foot, or when they when Louis Spina hit the right button on the live stats after throwing his arms up in the air.
Yeah, Niagara scored with about 7-ish minutes to go, and at that point I was like, oh, here we go. We have to. It's do or die. We have to do this now. And the clock kept ticking down, tick, tick, tick. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, someone has to do something. Then UB gets the corner kick. I see the ball go up. In comes Bramble, boom, right into the back of the net. I'm like, I jumped up and I threw my laptop. I was so excited. I was even more excited than Dana Lytle's game winner against Syracuse. Well, more because
that's a little scary, but I believe you.
It was because I was more dead from heat exhaustion than I was anything else.
I'm gonna try and just skip ahead. Oh, here it is. This is with 10 seconds left, right there. That's the goal. Let me rewind it because I don't want to listen to a little further. So this is against Niagara, who we really schooled last year, and according to John, tons of chances, just people unwilling to shoot. The story of the early season has been UB being unable to finish. Unable. They've gotten chances, they've played their game, but they've been unable to finish. And in this game, it kind of all came to a head. UB just couldn't. Nobody wanted to take that shot. And this was it. After this, the ref was blowing his whistle, her whistle perhaps. And Bramble knows it as soon as she's hit it. She looked down, hit the ball, and throws her hands up in the air. That's how she just knows. And that's all I have to say about that. But that's a big goal. I need to
and then
drop my screen share. Okay, there we go.
And then we moved on to Binghamton, and it was UB's 7th game of the season, which you had mentioned to me. It took 7 games for UB's offense to figure it out last season. Well, guess what? It only took 7 games to figure it out this season. It was a completely different team on offense. I think not even within the first minute, Carissa Catrona was inside the 10-yard line looking to score. I think the shot, if I remember correctly, just sailed right of the goal. We outshot Binghamton 26-8. If that gives you the people at home an idea of just how dominant we were on offense. Catrona.
Yeah. What did you say? It took Binghamton 15 minutes to get the ball across the 30-yard line.
Oh, it took them longer than that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We were in their half of the field for almost the first 20 minutes of the match.
Nice. And still took 20 minutes to score.
Yeah.
Binghamton is a team that UB should beat 3-0, and they should have beaten 3-0 regardless of their struggles earlier in the season. But the way the season has gone, the Bearcats had the same results against Canisius Niagara and St. Bonaventure that we did. I don't even remember who it was, but they had a win, a tie, and a loss against the 3 of them. And UB was a better team this year. UB was a much better team last year. And I think, everyone on Twitter was talking about how the Syracuse game was going to be a season-changing event. And then they came out and really were real tight and struggled against Niagara. And from what I can tell, they had a team meeting, a players-only meeting on Friday night, and just talked about how they're going to come out and have fun, and they're just going to play their game. And you really saw that. What you're watching right here is Nadia Johnson's goal. That's her first goal in years. She's dealt with some illness and some injuries over the years and has fought like crazy to get back. And she scored her first goal of the season. That goal earlier from inside the box was Carissa Catrona's first goal of the season. She's been so dangerous. Cassidy Kidd has been absolutely snake bit. She turned around and got two assists. If she can't score goals, let her generate goals off the assist. And what you saw that was just a team loose, playing their best. Catrona could have had a hat trick in the span of about 5 minutes in the second half. She had a run that was saved. She stepped inside on a play and that shot got blocked. And then she blitzed through 2 defenders off the corner. I think that highlight was somewhere in there. I won't pull it back up. But Catrona was as dangerous as she's been all season, got her first goal. Nadia Johnson got a goal. Julia Bonatti, she was the one who scored in the first half, moving in that direction towards the right. She now leads the team with 2 goals on the season. I think UB's up to 8 different goal scorers. That was what that team can be. They did not allow a shot in the second half, I don't think. 1, maybe.
3.
Oh, well, John knows better than I do. They didn't allow a dangerous shot of any sort. Laura Dougal is now 4 shutouts away from the UB record. She's already up to 5th in all-time wins for UB. She's going to get more shutouts. I think this game is going to mean more when they look back on the season than the Syracuse game. I do, because this team remembered what it's like to have fun, and they went out and played loose and played their game. And you could see it in the way they were running around. You could see it in their play that they were relaxed and that they knew they were anticipating each other's movements. They knew where they were going to be. And they weren't cocky. They didn't take their opponent, lightly, but they went out and took it to them.
Yeah. Another thing, 2 other things quick. First, I just had this thought in the back of my head the whole time that the girls probably wanted this one to end in regulation after Syracuse going to 2 overtimes in that absolutely grueling heat. and then going to 2 overtimes against Niagara, plus the 90 minutes against Binghamton. That's a grand total of 308 minutes of soccer in less than a week. So I'm sure they were quite happy to get done, to end it in regulation, and then have a nice week off before heading down to Morgantown to face West Virginia. And the
West
other,
Virginia.
yeah.
Sorry,
And the UB only had, I think, 1 or 2 offsides.
Yeah, one. Just one.
Just one.
After 10 in the first half against Niagara.
Yeah, and that 10 against Niagara absolutely killed any time they were looking to get a breakaway or anything. It was offside
Yeah.
every single time. So,
and I'm generally okay with offsides because you can't be offsides if you don't have the ball, and you can't be offsides if you're not attacking. But 10 is too many. 10 is just too many chances to let go by without scoring a goal, let alone to let go by without taking a shot. And it looks like they fixed that against Binghamton. I don't think they're going to have a chance to get many offsides against West Virginia. We won't talk about them for too long because it is already 10:48 and we still need to hit men's soccer and preview the week ahead quickly. But West Virginia, top 10 team. They'll be the third top 10 team that UB's faced in the last year. Last year was Virginia Tech with no Laura Dougal. You can imagine how that went. And then Penn State in the NCAA tournament. And UB lost Jackie Hall at halftime to a concussion, and you can imagine how that went. West Virginia this year is ranked. They've already shut out Penn State this season, and they feature, no exaggeration, one of the 10 best players in the world in Kadisha Buchanan on their defensive line. She is coming off a stint in the summer with, you may have heard of the Canadian women's national team and the Women's World Cup. She was named Best Young Player at the Women's World Cup. She is a devastating defender. UB is going to have no time to make any decisions with her. They're going to have to plan further ahead than they have in the past. And it's not just her. West Virginia is a good team top to bottom. They feature another Canadian women's national team player in midfielder Ashley Lawrence. And this is going to be a really fun game to watch just to see what happens, didn't get a fair shot, and a fair shot's wrong, but they weren't able to take on Penn State or what Virginia Tech at full strength last year. And I don't think they win either of those games anyway. But this year it looks like they're at full strength, and they've got a week to rest specifically for this game, and they've got a week the week after. We'll preview this. I'm doing these weekly previews this year. We'll preview this coming in the week. But Kadisha Buchanan is a very real player. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating when I say she's one of the 10 best in the world. UB has a half dozen Canadians on their team. A number of them went, we're tweeting over the summer about how they were going to see games at the Women's World Cup. And now they're going to be stepping on the same field as two Canadians from their national team. It's going to be a really exciting game, really no matter the outcome, just to see some real high-level soccer. Nice barometer for UB before they hit MAC play the week after. Maybe they might still have one game after West Virginia. I don't think they do. I think they step right into Ohio. But next week, this podcast, we're going to be talking about how UB women's soccer fared up against 2 players from the Canadians women's national team, and one of whom being one of the best in the world. So with that happy note, men's soccer, they're on a schneid. They're generating offensive chances, John. In the span of 4 minutes today in the first half, they hit the bar. Russell Cicerone appeared to draw a penalty kick, and he forced a great save. Against UMass Lowell, they hit a bar. Russell forced a great save. They still didn't score. Last week, Russell hit a post on Sunday, and I think they hit a post somewhere else. Doney scored and was ruled offside. And they've now lost 3 straight on the road, and they haven't scored a goal in over 6 hours of game time. They didn't score in 90 minutes today. They didn't score in 90 minutes Friday, they didn't score in 95 minutes last Sunday, and they scored 4 minutes in and then went another 105 minutes without scoring on last Friday. So they need to come home. They lost today. I guess I should give you the scores. They lost today 1-0 to Bryant. That goal really came against the run of play. UB really controlled the first half in a big way and looked to have more chances in the early second half. And then Bryant scored, and UB was not able to. They kind of fell apart from there. Bryant last year was the team that Russell put in that goal of the year from half court, half field on them to win, and that came after Netsker, somebody scored in the 89th minute just to force overtime last year. So a 1-0 goal, 1-0 scoreline is not terribly surprising given what happened last year. UMass Lowell game on Friday, UB just got beat by a team who plays UB's game. UMass Lowell had a very organized defense, very physical when the ball got too close, and they were able to scrape out a pair of goals, a little bit on the counterattack, a little bit on set pieces. UB couldn't convert early chances, and the men are close. They've had enough chances to score. I know you've got something to chime in on that, but they've now lost 3 in a row. They're down to 3-3-1 on the season after starting 3-0-1. We need goals. They're playing next Friday against Lafayette, a team that really they had to knock it out prize fight last year against them. I'm very excited to see how that one turns out. They've got a home match against Lafayette and a home match against Niagara next weekend. But, John, I think you were able to follow men's soccer a little bit more than some of the other sports this weekend. Mm-hmm. My big thing on them is that they haven't scored, and you need to score to win games. Although, I'll talk about it in a minute. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the 3 games that they won, men's soccer scored a grand total of 9 goals. In the 4 games since, they've scored 1. So that kind of illustrates your point right there. And like you said, it's not like the opportunities aren't there. It's just nothing is finding net. Which brings me to my little teensy kind of gripe with the Spectrum, who, not really who, but they put out an article today on the loss to Bryant, and they mentioned in one paragraph that midfielder Russell Cicerone has appeared to sizzle out after starting the season with 3 goals and 3 assists in his first 4 games. I wouldn't necessarily say he's sizzled out, which I don't even know if that makes any sense. I would say fizzle out instead of sizzle, but
let's take the substance here right now.
but I mean, like you said, like he is generating very dangerous chances. He's forcing the goalies to make great saves. It's not like he's just completely disappeared, off the face of the earth. He's still there. He's still extremely dangerous. One of the most dangerous players in the country, I would say.
He scored on that free kick against Canisius. That was utterly devastating. I actually need to go back and see if it won Top Drawer Soccer Goal of the Week. He scored on the penalty kick against Rio Grande Valley on that Friday. He hit the post on Sunday against Houston Baptist. The only reason he was kept off the score sheet against UMass Lowell was on a backwards leaping, lunging save that the goalie just pushed wide against Lowell. And there was another one of those in the end of the first half today against Bryant, and followed up 2 minutes later by a play that probably should have been a penalty kick. We're not far from Russell Cicerone being on a 5-game scoring streak, 6 goals in 5 games. That's not sizzling out. It's the same thing that the women kind of hit early in this season, is that the finishing just isn't there. And some of the names that are coming close are, Braden Scales put one off the crossbar today. I don't remember who put one off the crossbar. Culver in the Lowell game. This is a diversity of attack that we really need for UB this year, and it's there. It's there. We'll see what happens when they come back home. Stu Riddle said after the Lowell game that he thought that UB's response in the second half to Lowell was the best they've ever played with him. And I don't agree. But if he's saying it and he's pleased, I'm going to perk up and listen to him and say, all right, then it is more than goals. You have to score goals to win, but it is more than goals. And if he's all right with that performance, then that kind of buoys my feeling that they're not far away. Joe Kuda got the starting goal, his first today, and he did pretty well. Bryant's stream was finicky, so I didn't actually see the goal, but he made 4 saves. Cam Hogg had started all the games prior. I don't think any of the goals he gave up were particularly bad. I think they were defensive miscues that led to them. But Kuda played. The men, they're not losing big. They're not, last year they went out to San Diego to open the season and lost 4-1 and 1-0 and got dominated in both games. They haven't been dominated in any game yet, except maybe Houston Baptist. Maybe UMass Lowell in the first half. I don't know if you have more.
Not really. This 2-game homestand, I think, will reveal a bit more about what this team really is and what if they're able to respond to this 3-1 streak since September 1st when they beat Canisius. If they're able to come back home and win, and not even win, I just want to see someone score goals. That's which is conducive to winning.
Yeah, there's a correlation there.
Yeah, there's.
Oh my! Is that supposed to be an interception? I'm sorry, we don't talk about football on this show, but somebody just dropped something really bad on the television.
Yeah, I have it above my computer as well.
That's probably a sign for us that we should start wrapping up. The last thing that we want to do is just run through the week ahead. We've kind of talked about the games ahead. We've obviously, while we're on men's soccer, they have this homestand this weekend, Lafayette and Niagara. I think both these games are going to be really interesting for this team, who certainly looks like they've improved over last season. And even in these losses, like I said, they're not bad losses. They're still playing all right. They just need to get one in the net. Last year, I thought that UB against Lafayette in Lafayette was their strongest game of the season. It was 0-0 through the 83rd minute, 85th minute. Waleed Cassis made 9 saves. The Lafayette goalie made 8 saves. It was just a real great game. Both teams had good chances, but it wasn't a track meet. It was a defensive struggle with stretches of good play, lots of momentum shifts. And I thought it was UB's best game. I thought it was the most exciting they played all year. I'm really excited for the follow-up at UB Stadium. That's this Friday, and I think it's at 5. And then on Sunday, they play Niagara at home. Last year, Niagara beat them 2-0. Little bit of a physical game, a little bit of a not necessarily clearly the better team, but got a goal at the right time, was able to shift to a defensive shell, and then capitalize on UB overextending. And we're at a point in UB's development as an athletics department where UB should never lose to Canisius or Niagara or Binghamton or Stony Brook or Albany. It just shouldn't happen in any sport. And men's soccer is one of them. And are they there right now? I don't know. Niagara had a pair of brothers who played for FC Buffalo who were very good, the Ferguson brothers. But it's a home match. It's a Sunday. There will be some students there. The True Blue is really starting to come out and support soccer, both teams. I'm really glad for. And we'll see from that. Quickly, the cross-country women are going to have travel down to New York for the Iona Meet of Champions. Don't have much to say on that other than the women performed real well there last year and jumped into the regional rankings for a week or two. The men I mentioned earlier in the show are going to split, men's tennis, are going to split their team, and one group's going to head to the Ivy Plus Invitational, and one's going to head to Binghamton. Again, not something that I can preview too much. We'll just talk about the matchups and how people did when they go. West Virginia I talked about. We said last week that we don't want to turn this into a list, but we've kind of talked about all these already, John. West Virginia for women's soccer, that I think West Virginia's feed might be free.
I certainly hope it is.
If it's free, I mean, I've gotten better over the years on Bull Run of not bringing up the fact that I went to Boston College over and over again. But Boston College is playing Florida State on a Friday night And I'm honestly torn of whether I want to go out and watch that football game or if I want to try and watch this free stream of women's soccer, and I'm leaning towards women's soccer. I'm that excited for this West Virginia game. I don't think UB pulls the upset. I don't think UB manages a tie. But it's not often that UB gets to compete against one of literally the best in the world. We got it with wrestling this weekend. We get it with women's soccer this coming weekend. And so that's going to be worth your time, although you probably have, unlike me, better things to do on a Friday night. Both John and you readers out there. Finally, volleyball, they're going to get the first win against Canisius on Tuesday. I said that. Book it. And then they're headed to Syracuse for a tournament. And John, I don't know if I've talked now for a few minutes, but they're going to play Navy, New Hampshire, and Syracuse. And I think there's room for at least 2 wins there. I'd be very happy with 3. I could see any result. 0 wins up to 3 wins.
I mean, if I get another excuse to come on here and drink orange juice and vodka, I'd be happy with that.
Paige will tomorrow morning or Tuesday come in and tell us how good Syracuse is, and probably how good Navy is as well. Syracuse is an ACC team. New York produces a lot of volleyball talent, so there's a chance that Syracuse could be really good. But I don't know. It's Syracuse, so I always think they're beatable. I haven't done my previews yet, but that's certainly a less daunting slate of opponents than we've gotten. Even this past weekend, UB Volleyball didn't play a ranked opponent, and I still think Navy, New Hampshire, and Syracuse is a lighter schedule than them. And then after that, they finally come home. End of the month is when they get some home matches against Akron and Toledo. But that's for next week's show to talk about.
Yeah, it'll be just about time. I feel like the volleyball team is like Forrest Gump when he goes on his cross country, and then it's like the volleyball team. They have the full beer down, and it's like, I think I'm done. I think I'm gonna go home now. And then
I'm tired now. I'm gonna go home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel bad because we've done all these new things this year. We're trying out some things, and really, women's soccer is the only team that's played enough home games to get your video recaps. We got a video recap out of Drew for the men's soccer game at UMass Lowell because he's living in Boston. I'm thinking I might do video recaps when I have a stream of a road game, just because why not? It takes 5 minutes to set up. But men's soccer and volleyball, we're waiting for you to come home. And next week, we'll have some home games from the men to talk about. John, you'll be in attendance for at least one of them, I hope. And then we'll be able to look to volleyball's max schedule. With that, that's our week. We started out talking about Nate Rose. If you're jumping in late, this is available at ubbullrun.com. It'll stay there and on my personal YouTube page, but that page is only all these videos anyway. Skip back to the start and listen to us talk about Nate Rose from UB Wrestling. He competed in the World Championships. He's the real deal. It's an hour-long show. We covered, how many different sports teams did we cover today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different teams, plus Nate Rose. That's 7, and he took up 15 minutes. And that's how big news this past weekend was for him. Mixed weekend, on the other hand, starting to see some good things from some teams. Glad to see tennis in action. Cross country, don't sleep on cross country this year. Volleyball's improving. Men's soccer is coming home, and they need it. And women's soccer looks like they're having fun again before going into a real big matchup against West Virginia. With that, we dropped down to 0 viewers on the video. I'll take that as a cue. I'm Matt Gritzmacher for UB Bull Run. I'm joined by John McWhinney every week, Sundays at 10 p.m., talking about all of UB's non-football, non-basketball sports. This is the Olympic Sports Rundown. Every week at Sunday, 10 p.m. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for watching. Go Bulls.